And so just really grateful to see all of you. This is what it's all about, Community Land Trust. We're in community. Just a quick shout out, if you're a CLAM board member, past or present, raise your hand. All right, yeah, we got Bob, Susan, Pamela, thank you so much. Kathleen Dorranson in the back there, our secretary, thanks Kathleen. I'd also like to recognize that we have some key CLAM partners here, Supervisor Radoni from the county, thank you, Supervisor. Sandra Benjamin from the Marine Community Foundation, Sarah Hobson from West Marin Fund. I think I've got some remarks, and you know, my favorite thing is the question and answer time, because that's where we really get to dive in together. We're kind of in unprecedented times for CLAM and the community. Not just the scale of the Coast Guard project, which we all want to be done yesterday, but also this mass displacement crisis that we're all working creatively to help address with families at Martinelli and Seashore. Taken together, that's about 40 households at Martinelli Seashore and about 54 units at Coast Guard. That's a pretty big scale for what the Land Trust has done previously in the last 20 years. It's a whole different level of stakes and level of impact that we're trying to achieve with a pretty small team. I like to think that CLAM is punching above its weight for the size of a small local nonprofit, but we're not doing it alone. Like, this is a community effort, right? Like, we are only, the successes that you're gonna hear about today are only because of creative partnerships with county electeds and county CDA, and creative partnerships with Marin Community Foundation and West Marin Fund. And maybe you've heard of the Coalition for Housing All Workers and Their Families. That is a huge interagency, inter-organizational effort to start to say, how can we show up for our local workforce? How can we show up for our families so that ultimately this is a vibrant, thriving community for all of us? Like, this is something that will, in the long run, benefit this entire community, is having a thriving local workforce, intergenerational families that can afford to live here, your kids, your grandkids that can afford to live here. So the stakes are high. And you know, the CLAM team, we take this really seriously every day that we're here doing this important work. And so I want to share with you some of what's happening, and hopefully you share in the excitement that we have. So we as staff and board have decided that given the scale of what we're facing and our efforts to avoid the displacement of 40 households living at Martinelli and Seashore, that we're going to, between now and June of next year, be prioritizing those households and solutions for them, both in interim and permanent housing. The only way we're going to get there is an above all strategy. Otherwise, we cannot get there, and some of these families will have to look for other options of where to live. So in solidarity, CLAM, its board, its staff, has said we are going to prioritize these households for any interim and permanent housing opportunities that we can find that will work for them and the level of affordability that they need. That's a really big deal, and I'd like to give the CLAM board a round of applause for supporting that effort. You know, we're racing against a deadline. March 2026 is obviously the settlement date for the Seashore families, Martinelli households. You know, both these households, and when they're living in substandard housing, we're trying to figure out solutions before the rainy season. And if the rainy season hits, we're gonna have to figure out how to have emergency situations where necessary. But a lot of these households are having to make decisions now. Like, where are their kids? If they have to move to Petaluma, are their kids gonna go to school here? Right? Like, so while we have March, the sooner that we can send real signals of hope, the better. This week, we've met with Martinelli and Seashore residents. I might have cried a couple times, admittedly, in the conversations that we've been having, both for the hope and both for what they're facing and trying to navigate in housing uncertainty and instability. In terms of what we're attempting to do, when I say truly affordable rents for these households, just to put that, the wonky way to put it is 30% AMI. What that translates to is about $1,000 to $1,600 a month in rent. That's a really big deal to try to achieve not only the scale of numbers that we're talking about for these households, approximately 40 units, but also at a rent of $1,000 to $1,600 a month. Truly a big impact. And we're doing this all while keeping our eye on the ball with Coast Guard. Right? So we can't lose sight of the Coast Guard. Tom McCafferty, our Director of Properties, say hi, Tom. He has been doing incredible work these last few years, really rising to the challenge and stepping into some really big shoes and walking in them quite well, Tom. We're super grateful for all the work you're doing. Kathleen's saying you can't hear me that well. Perfect, thanks Kathleen. So the big piece with that is, will we get state funding to the tune of about $11.4 million from CERNA? And we're hoping in the next week or two to get good news on that. If we don't, then we're going to be trying to sprint to fundraise. I'll talk to you more about that in a minute, but we're just trying to keep the timeline to this February federal tax credit date for the Coast Guard. That's the key date we're trying to push to not slow down that project. So about the mass displacement crisis, we're making major funding progress. I'm so happy to say, and thanks in large part to Cassandra Benjamin and Sarah Hobson from MCF and West Marin Fund, and some direct relationships with CLAM. If you do some simple math, you would know that real estate and helping house nearly 40 families in this short period of time is a pretty big and astounding number. I won't get into the details, but I can also say that thanks to our collaboration with CLAM, West Marin Fund, and Marin Community Foundation, we are well on our way to that goal at very significant numbers. It's pretty unprecedented, actually. I think for many of us, we have a long way to go, and we also are feeling a lot of momentum. It's so much so that we even have some tangible results to share. So many of you know that we recently closed on a property on 2nd Street, just over the way. That was thanks to some real innovative work and generosity from Jack Kramer and Susan Hayes. If you all want to raise your hands, let's give them a round of applause. I don't know if they're still here, if they had to go. Oh, perfect. Jack, Susan, thank you so much. Not only did they agree to sell the property below an appraised amount, but they also helped seller finance it so we could move on it quickly. And I really hope that Jack and Susan, that your generosity inspires other community members when they're at a stage where they can do that they help pay it forward to the community they love. We're so grateful. Thank you so much. Let's give another round of applause. And it doesn't stop there, because with the CLAM board passing this prioritization of displaced families, we also were then able to ensure that one Martinelli family and one Seashore family will live in the 2 vacant units at 2nd Street. That's a really big deal. It's a big first step, and I've shared that same news this week with Martinelli and Seashore residents, and while it's only 1 unit per affected community, it's sending a really strong signal. It's sending a really strong signal that things are actually happening, right? And the numbers don't do the impact justice. These are livelihoods. Those 2 decisions will add up to years, decades of secure living. And so let's just not lose sight that 40 households, 40 household livelihoods, these impacts add up. And that's when I probably might have cried in front of Martinelli Seashore residents and sharing the news, but it's that important and the stakes are that high. And you'll probably, in the months ahead, see me cry, hopefully tears of joy, because there's a lot of pressure on all of us to figure this out. Both of those units are at affordable levels, of course, too. And then we have another big signal of hope to the affected communities coming up at the August 26th Board of Supervisors meeting. That's for the 6th and B lot just across the way, where CLAM and the county are intending to partner to stand up interim housing for affected communities. This is part of the emergency shelter declaration. It maps to where our funders and generosity are directing this, in which everybody wants us to show up for these communities, and that was a fast way to be able to do that, because there's not a lot of available units at the scale we're talking about. We can talk about that more, and I'm sure folks will have a lot of questions. But I can just say that we have to comply with county code. We have to comply with county processes. We will be working closely with the county on this. And I'll be happy to share whatever details we can at this point when folks have questions, because I'm sure you'll have some, but I'm really heartened, and the affected communities are really excited about this opportunity. So to the best of our extent, I would love for them to feel that support from us too. And not only are we working together with the Coalition for Housing All Workers and Their Families, but also in this effort to secure approximately 40 units of housing in such a short period of time, we're also working across community land trusts. So many of these affected families, when we've done surveys, have said they're willing to live anywhere that they can in West Marin, ideally close to Point Reyes Station, but if it needs to be Forest Knolls or Stinson Beach or Tamales, that's the strategy we're going to take. And as many of you know, CLAM's territory is typically right here along Tamales Bay. So we're working with Bolinas Community Land Trust. We're working with Two Valleys Community Land Trust and Stinson Beach's Affordable Housing Committee. And that I think is hopefully something that sends a really strong signal of the promise of the West Marin Housing Collaborative and what we can do as an entire region of West Marin is work together to create faster solutions and hopefully more inspiration. And then the last thing I'll say is, I know that folks aren't seeing it publicly, but I just want to say that we have been really working closely with the county on the Coast Guard. That's how we were able to even apply for CERNA funding, was a really important board decision for the Board of Supervisors to fund to the tune of $10 million to even make us eligible for the Coast Guard CERNA funding. And there's a lot of thought partnership about how can we work together to address this unprecedented crisis of 40 households in such a short period of time. My hope is that much of that becomes much more apparent to you as we can advance different sites and be able to be more public together on those opportunities. But my hope is 2 months from now when we're having the same conversation, it's with even more detail and you have even more inspiration and trust in us. And as I mentioned, local donors are stepping up, and I would encourage you, if anybody's interested in helping CLAM, consider this the beginning of our appeal. We need all the help we can get as soon as possible to house these families. So spread the word. We're gonna need to get there together. And that is just about it for my opening remarks. And now it's my favorite part of the program, which is your questions. Yeah.
Someone told me yesterday, someone
Do you want to
who's
use the
on
mic?
your,
Here, let me, just so folks can hear you.
someone who is
I'll
on
repeat
your
it back.
board told me a couple of days ago that one of the blocks to the Coast Guard property moving forward is North Marin Water District. It's something to do with the well. They want the well to go dry or something. Can you explain what's going on with them?
That's a really good. I'm gonna have to take another sip of my coffee to answer that question. Tom, maybe you want to come up and get my back on that. Let's give it up for Tom McCafferty, Director of Property. Make sure he doesn't have to edit the ID later.
Can you repeat the question, Tom, too, for people who didn't hear it?
Yeah, so the question was, somebody in the community heard from a CLAM board member that the North Marin Water District is potentially holding up the Coast Guard project, and I don't think that's necessarily quite accurate. We're working closely with the Water District. They do have 2 of the 4 wells that serve West Marin on the Coast Guard site, and they're very concerned about putting a massive wastewater treatment site on the site, understandably so. And this is where the Coast Guard left the site, as they did a big massive study on what would it take to not haul our waste away every single day to another site to disperse it. And even for the Department of Defense, they said, wow, this is really expensive, we're gonna get rid of this site. So that's what CLAM and Eden inherited, was a big challenge around how to design a wastewater system that protects the drinking water for West Marin. It's a big challenge, and North Marin Water District is interested in protecting the water for the people of the community. It's a very reasonable request to have us design a system that's not going to taint the water supply. So what that means is we need to design a tertiary level treatment wastewater system. So many of you, probably all of you, live on your own wastewater systems. You have a primary level treatment, that's your tanks, and then that can go into a leach field. Some of you may have a secondary level treatment, that's a pressurized system that's gonna run through filters and then be dispersed. Much cleaner water than primary level treatment. What we're being asked to do by the county, by the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and by the Water District is to bring it up to tertiary level treatment, which is even further, even more expensive, but it's important, and we're gonna do it because we also are interested in protecting the water supply.
What an
Thanks.
opportunity. What an opportunity. But really, you know, we can keep looking at these things as if they're bigger and bigger obstacles, but what a flippin' opportunity for this community to really show what we are capable of doing. And thank you for bringing that up.
So where does it stand now? Where are you in that process?
So originally there was a design to take that tertiary treated wastewater and disperse it on site for the landscaping. So we met with the water district at the end of last year, and Tony had asked us, let's be as cautious as we can be. You know, the water district, they intend to move those wells. They intend to find another spot. They're getting salinated from backflow from the Lagunitas Creek in the bay. And they're interested in finding another solution, but this is a multi-million-dollar question to find wells that can serve this many people. So we've redesigned the system to push it as far away from what they're calling their sort of protection zone. It's about 1,600 feet around the wells, where they're asking not to disperse any potential contaminants to the water. So we've designed the system such that when the wells leave, we can go back to our original design, which includes landscaping and irrigating the site with that treated wastewater.
Okay, thank you.
Just a few layers there, right?
So Tony and the crew at the Water District have been very receptive of our designs. They've not been blocking us. They've been very supportive of the project. It's the challenge of the design and the expense of the system, inherently tied to the problem of having the community's water supply next to a wastewater system that serves 200 people.
Any other hard questions I can hand the microphone for? Yeah.
I don't have, I'm just wondering, what's the projected cost for the purification of the water supply?
Yeah, so the whole system needs to be redone, and that includes the laterals from the houses to the sewer main. The sewer main goes and it drops to what you call a lift station, which picks it back up so it can drop again and be gravity fed out to the system. All this to get it as far away from the wells as possible. So the treatment system itself for that tertiary level treatment wastewater system is to the tune of about $2 to $3 million. We'll see how that actually plays out. I'm sure construction costs vary as time goes on, but there's also the cost of digging up the supply lines that will feed into the system, and that has its own costs. The trenching of it, putting the new pipes in, and then resurfacing the parking is all tied into it. But for the actual cost of the system itself, $2 to $3 million.
Right. With maybe another, hard to say, a couple $100,000 or $1 million for the labor, or just curious.
The labor for the wastewater system is included, so
Okay.
the tanks and all the lines to disperse it is part of that $2 to $3 million. Jack.
I was wondering if any of the entities that facilitated the thing in the park with the families having to leave, like the NPS itself or the Nature Conservancy, I know that there's earmarked monies for those families, but is there any money earmarked for CLAM specifically to help those families?
It's a great question.
The short answer is no, and I don't know, Cassandra, if you wanted to share any insights or your thoughts on it. Is that?
Sure, I think I project pretty well, right? Okay. It's a great question. I wish the answer was yes, but the settlement did not provide.
What was the question?
The question was, hey, the displacement is being caused in part by this settlement between the Park Service, the three environmental groups, and the ranchers. And it came with some funds in the settlement, right? So there were funds, undisclosed total amount, newspaper reports at around $30 million for payouts for ranchers. And then the Nature Conservancy committed to raising some money specifically to help the households. And West Marin Community Services is doing a great job there. They're signing up families to be able to access a short, smaller payment of this direct assistance. And then when they leave, they'll get a bigger amount. There is no amount that gives you enough to just like live in West Marin, especially when there's not housing available, but it is something to help people in their move, in their packing, in their timing. It's based on what fair market value, rent value of 18 months of rent would be here, so it's a decent amount per your household. There is no money, and then there is the talk of some funding in that to maybe help with some transition, other kinds of employment transition, like for people who've been working in agriculture to maybe get a new agricultural job somewhere else if they're interested, and some other sorts of transition supports, but there has been no commitment to any kind of funding for housing, and it's partly why West Marin Fund and Community Foundation and the county and CLAM have been working so hard to raise all these other dollars. If it was a different administration, we might try on the National Park Service. I don't feel like that would be fruitful for us at this time, so we haven't. And the other groups actually, it's not that the Nature Conservancy is having to raise the money that they're trying to do already. It's not that they're just sitting on a bunch of cash. So unfortunately, our community is left to figure out how to do this together and keep those families.
Thanks, Cassandra. Any other questions? Keep them coming. It's a great opportunity to think up a little bit. Yes.
I was just going to ask for clarification. The house you spoke of earlier, it's right over there on the Western Street,
Yeah, it's 5565 2nd Street. just
where we had
behind
the gathering
just
a
behind
year and a
Cheetahs,
half
yeah,
ago or
in
so.
Western,
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you say a little more about the calf lot, just in case we do have neighbors or folks who are interested, just like a little about the timeline? You mentioned it's going to the board in August, but
Yep.
you know, working on an operating agreement, kind of, we know, just what's your envision?
Absolutely, yeah. So for the August 26th Board of Supervisors meeting, what will be on the agenda is a purchase and sale agreement between, you want to turn it up, between CLAM and the county, in which CLAM will be selling essentially in a back-to-back close with the county will be taking possession and ownership of 6th and B. That's so we can use the emergency shelter declaration to help with interim housing for these households. That was passed in March unanimously by the Board of Supervisors. So I think the intent's been really clear that there's been a lot of pressure on the county to show up for Martinelli and Seashore residents, so that's their response. And CLAM has wanted the site for permanent housing for a long time, and when we said, okay, well, maybe there's a pathway here to do some immediate interim housing that maps to a timeline that can help these families avoid displacement. That was the basic strategic rationale of a why to do this together between county and CLAM. It'll only be a purchase and sale agreement at the August 26th Board of Supervisors meeting. What's still going to be needed after that is operating and likely at least an operating agreement between the county and CLAM to operate interim housing. And that's in part because the county and CLAM need more time to figure out the plan together on the site itself of the development. So we're still working on septic, right? Like, as you all know, that's the first place we start for any development. You all know that very well. And that is not fully clear yet what the septic can look like. And I know there's a lot of desire to understand, well, what exactly are we going to do there? And I promise you that as soon as we actually know what it can look like with septic, we can start to actually talk about what the site development will be. But this is just a purchase and sale agreement. We have to comply with county standards. The county owns it. So, it's going to be county regulation and the emergency shelter declaration that are the North Star on what we can actually do on that site. Including how many residents can be in a given unit. So any concerns about overcrowding or density, it's all going to map to what the county will allow us to do. And then in terms of units, we are honing in on a potential vendor that we're interested in, Pacifica Tiny Homes. You can look at on the site, they have a great website. We're looking at the larger units. At their 12 by 38, am I remembering that right?
11 by 36.
11 by
Just under
36.
400 square feet.
Okay, so just under 400 square feet. So if you want to get a sense of the potential direction of what the actual structures will be, we will have kind of more marketing materials for them so you can all see it at future events. We might even be able to have an actual home on wheels that you all could see and tour in the months ahead, because I think it makes it a little bit more real. And anything else I'm forgetting that you'd want to share, Tom, about 6th and B?
Parking.
Parking.
Parking, yeah. So in the plan, we hear everybody loud and clear. There have been concerns about when there's a big event here at Dance Palace, parking can get a little congested, to say the least, in the area. So we're planning on having on-site parking. Tom, do you want to elaborate on the parking?
Sure. Yeah. So the parking, we want to have at least 2 stalls per each unit that we're going to put on there. The parking lot itself will be 60 feet wide by 12 stalls long, which is about 120. So it'll take up a good chunk of the site, but we are thinking it's very important to make sure that we're not overcrowding the area with cars and people are struggling to find where to park. So we're hoping to design the site with the permanent housing in mind. So the parking lot is one aspect of that. The septic system is another aspect of that. And then the utility trenching is the third aspect of that. So everything that is subterranean, we hope to not disturb when we're transitioning from interim housing to permanent. That's the goal, and we're trying to get there. We're concurrently designing interim housing and permanent. We want to have the utility risers in the same location for both.
And I'll just say that with the emergency shelter declaration, all that allows us to do is focus on the interim housing for the county. So that's where we're focused. We're trying to maximize community benefit and investment, but that's a whole separate permitting process. So we're just trying to allow for the investment in the permanent septic to support future permanent housing. But when these key votes with the lease and operating agreement and the planning with the county's made it very clear that while we can try to align some of the investment to help and support future permanent housing, that we're going to focus on the interim housing. And once the interim is done, the indication I've gotten from the county is we cannot count on anything above ground staying. Just like Tom said, the trenching and some of the below ground efforts, that's where we can sort of try to map to benefiting the permanent. I won't go any deeper than that because it gets a little wonky, but policy wonky, right? Okay, other questions? Let's see. Right here, Elizabeth.
How do you see the tiny homes as being preferable to the old-fashioned RV that they're using in the arena?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I mean, I need to tip a hat. Oh, yeah, so the question was, thanks everybody. The question was, what's sort of the logic or rationale between like RVs that they used at Belinda Vista and using homes on wheels or tiny homes on wheels? It's a great question, Elizabeth. And I just, I would send a big thanks to BCLT for being so collaborative and sharing their learnings. Belinda Vista is a pioneering project, and like all pioneering projects, you learn a lot. And so we talked a lot to the BCLT team about, Belinda Vista, and the real issue with RVs is they're not meant for long-term living, even 3 to 5 years. So when we say interim housing, CLAM is thinking, county's thinking 3 years, up to 5 if needed. That gives CLAM enough time to find permanent housing to transition these households to. That's a little too long for a trailer, in part just because they're not built for that type of impact, and there's a lot of repairs. Right, so we really wanted to invest in something that had a better, utility as it relates to permanent housing or even transitional housing that folks will be living in for 3 to 5 years. There is also the opportunity, upon completion of the interim housing, to take those units and install them in other locations or use them on ranches for additional transitional housing. Right, so it's an investment that hopefully has a longer lifespan, better comfort for the households, more aesthetically pleasing. Right, there's just many benefits that we're trying to, again, these are community dollars that we're predominantly using both from the county and from philanthropists, and so we were trying to be as wise as possible and maximize the co-benefits. Same logic with the septic is like, if we can get to a place where permanent septic benefits some yet to be determined or designed permanent housing, well, that's just good because we're being frugal about money and use of money. Same with the units. Great question, Elizabeth. Yeah, Jerry, you got your hand up.
Yeah, so as a kind of a smaller member of the community, limited income, I'm just wondering if there is a process in place. So say that I am able to, maybe minimal, but it may be able to donate something or to create something that can create funding for y'all. How do folks like me who don't have a nonprofit or things like that, how can we contribute in a fairly direct way? That's a question I would really love for y'all to be able to answer.
Yeah, I mean, So Jerry's question was, how could she be a part of the solution? And you know, I'd just say, Jerry, like every gift helps. Any amount, like CLAM is built on grassroots fundraising. CLAM is built on grassroots support. So that's not going to change. Like that has to be core to our efforts. I would say, in addition to giving gifts, it's time, talent, treasure. So people can use their talents when we have volunteer days. We just had a few successful volunteer days at 2nd Street, and folks did a lot of work. So if folks have skills, trade, they want to bring it to bear on our committees, they want to bring it to bear and volunteer on our board. Like these are the areas where the CLAM you see now and the West Marin Housing Collaborative we're talking about, the hope is that you see an even more robust, high capacity, affordable housing effort in the years to come. That's going to also come with support from the community in all sorts. I would say writing letters of support to the Board of Supervisors about your support of affordable housing in general, as well as the 6th and B project if you're so inclined, because it's a big signal to these 40 affected families, right? It's not just about that one site. We're looking at about over 7 different sites to help be a part of this solution. Some of them partnering with nonprofits that have vacant housing, some of them where there's existing housing like we did on 2nd Street, where it's kind of our typical preservation, where we acquire an affordable property. So yeah, community support like this, I'd say by you all being here, you're already helping. And then those other ideas I'd shared. Any of the others you want to add, Tom? Okay. Kathleen, yeah.
I have an idea of when we have events like this, one of the best things you can do, it doesn't cost you anything, is to invite your neighbors and your friends locally to come to this event, to hear about CLAM and CLAM's work, because everybody I meet on the street who knows that I'm on the CLAM board, their first question out of their mouth is, what's CLAM up to? So if you bring the people to these events, I won't have to answer that question.
We love for you to answer.
I know you do, but you get the gist of what I'm saying.
Yeah, and one of those upcoming events that I hope you all have on your calendar is our fall celebration on September 14th. It's going to be here at the Dance Palace. I'm really excited about it. It has a little bit of our annual meeting business that we have to do as a community land trust and that we get to do. And then we're going to have a really great family-friendly program. So I hope that you'll all be here on September 14th. Thanks, Kathleen. Invite your friends. Let's see, Mark. I'm just going to work my way left to right to left.
So, Jared, I want to say your ability to articulate the complexity that you're dealing with is extraordinary. Having said that, folks that are not, fully engaged, it's hard to even imagine what you're coping with. And so I would just put out that I'm the secretary of the Point Reyes Station Village Association, and recognizing that this whole process is going to be going on for not indefinite, but it's going to be accelerating. I really urge people to also show up at the Village Association and see it as a vehicle to express concerns that we can in turn convey. And Tom has been showing up at the Village Association meetings. I think it's a good forum to bring forth concerns that might otherwise be more difficult to present in a venue like this. So I just urge people to consider that.
Yeah, well put, Mark. Thank you for that, and fully agree. And this is it's community land trust, so we don't expect that everybody agrees on everything all the time. That's actually not sincere community building, right? And so I hope that folks have felt that we listen, we inform as best we can to the extent that we actually have clear information, and let's just keep that spirit, because that's really what if we want to embody community-led development, then we do need to be engaged in community. And this Point Reyes Station Village Association, other forums, we're all in. So thank you, Mark. Yeah.
Okay, I understand that there's no plans yet, but they're being formed. But I have some questions about that. So the survey that should be done for the Branching families and the Martinelli families that will be there, how many of them are just not gonna be interested, they're already looking for another place, or they have a family, their families will be too big for these? How many people will it actually, do you think, end up serving from those communities and, in the end here? And maybe it won't, I'm just wondering if it'll be 16. I mean, maybe it'll only be 8, and maybe develop half that property as the temporary emergency and start building these 2 designated, because I understand that property will be 4 units, 4 divided, 4 lot split eventually.
There's a
that
lot of
correct?
ways to approach. So the question is
Okay.
specifically about, can I repeat, is it okay? And I'll try to, I see
Yeah.
the direction, I'll try to speed to answer. So the question was, have we completed surveys or census for Martinelli and Seashore residents, understanding household sizes and needs? And then would there be interest to live in interim housing, say at 6th and B? And I think that the first thing I'll say is that's one site among 7 or 8 that we're considering for either interim or permanent housing to get to that 40 household number, right? So it's not like that 6th and B needs to house everybody. That's impossible, first and foremost. And secondly, another, thank you. But also, what we are trying to do, so we have a census for Martinelli residents. We are getting a census complete for Seashore residents currently. And what we're going to try to do, because those will be homes on wheels, is we're going to try to put smaller households at 6th and B is the intention when there's bigger units with more bedrooms, whether it's preservation where we acquire a property that's existing, or if there's other existing sites where there can be more bedrooms, those would be for bigger families. And so that's as far as we, because we're not trying to put all the pressure, again, 6th and B is only going to have capacity for a fraction of the 40 households. So I hope that at least puts some ease in that we are looking at 8+ sites to get to 40, right? So 2nd Street is a perfect example of a different way to get
Can't
there.
hear you.
2nd Street is a perfect example of the other way to get there. Sorry, I'm bad with my mic manners today. Is that helpful to answer your question, or would you like to?
No, I didn't know you had other sites available for these families. I thought, I don't know that.
Right, and we will, the reason that because we're still trying to negotiate these sites, both with lease agreements, or we have proposals or counter proposals or offers, it's until we have site control or some form of agreement, we can't really be public. I know that's frustrating, but that's the quagmire that we're in, is that we are working so hard behind the scenes and we can't really, so I'm telling you the approximate types of units, I'm telling you where they are, and the stages that they're in. My hope is that in the weeks ahead, we have even more sites to talk about in addition to 2nd Street and 6th and B. So it's a really great point, and I fully empathize that a lot of this will be much easier as we start to get into specifics of other sites, and that's my commitment, not only to you, but also to the affected families.
Can I ask one more thing?
Could I clarify?
We'll circulate around a little bit. Sarah, yeah.
Yes,
please.
I'd like to clarify. Thank you for your question. And I heard also that you were asking how many of those 40 households actually will require interim housing and how many are moving away. And it's a moving question. And the reality is, for the people who are living on the seashore and on Martinelli, their situation is extraordinarily uncertain, very unstable, incredibly challenging, often abusive. And some people are self-evicting because they can't bear it any longer. Some people are moving away because they have the opportunity of some work, or, every family's situation is different. And as a community, we're trying to find multiple solutions, multiple options, because what we're hearing from those families is that they would like to stay in the community. They have their jobs, they have their kids in school, they're using the clinics. So there is this sense of urgency. And then this incredible uncertainty about actually when are they going to be evicted? Is it going to be February? Is it going to be this September? So there's multiple effort to provide housing as soon as possible of a good standard for as long as possible to enable people to stay in the community, to continue their lives. I think that's the challenge. And so it's not just numbers. It's like there are 40 here, because it might be 30, but it might go up to 35. It might go up to 50. We're experiencing eviction orders for people outside Seashore and Martinelli as well. So there is this huge crisis here in West Marin. And so all of the options and all of the effort, and I'm getting passionate about it because it hurts. It really hurts our community, and many people are hurting. And everyone is doing everything that they can. The county, CLAM, MCF, you. I mean, CLAM is extraordinary in the long-standing membership. I've known CLAM since its beginning. I know the founder, she's a friend of mine, and I watch with great love how CLAM has grown. But now is this incredibly urgent, large challenge. And let's do what we can. Doesn't fit in boxes. You know, it's like, let's do what we can, let's move things forward. Whenever there's an opportunity, I see it being grasped. And there's this incredible sense of being together to find solutions.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah. Next question. Yeah, Kate.
Hi, Jared. I appreciate the board and staff coming together and setting the priority and working with the partner organizations. I'm curious, if you're successful in acquiring multiple sites, which is fantastic, and using this pivotal time and the high pressure, will you also potentially, given whatever the regs are around filling the units, I go back to the days of the initial meetings at the Coast Guard, which were fantastic, and that were full of people also facing urgent housing issues. Will you potentially be able, if capacity allows, to address that backlog? Folks that have been, I think, hoping that, you know, I understand certainly why it takes the time it takes to do the Coast Guard, but potentially that population that's been waiting. Yeah.
Great question, Kay. Does anybody want me to repeat that back, or did everybody get it? Repeat it back? Okay. Kay's question was, can we use this moment as an opportunity to also address some of the structural issues of a backlog of folks who needed housing for a long time, and a lot of other displacements that have happened? I mean, raise your hand if you know somebody who left here that the community that didn't want to. Yeah. Right. So this is an opportunity, I think, to both show up for Martinelli and Seashore residents and other affected ranch families, and also learn about how. So there's this urgent crisis, and then there's been this slow-moving crisis and structural issues that I think is grabbing attention and allowing us to say, is there a better way?
Yes.
Right. And you kind of really, your question was, you know, sort of right in line with what I want to say, which is that this is a sprint right now, and there's a broader structural effort that we want to show up for all different folks that are facing displacement, seniors, right? Local workforce. There's just so many things that we need to do, and so hopefully we have way more capacity than what's needed, and we can look at some other opportunities. You know, and if we don't, my commitment is that in the years ahead, you know, CLAM is going to have a big strategic retreat this year and talk about the next 3 to 5 years. Because there is some big structural work that we want to do, and I think this is a great opportunity to say, how can we work together with our partners in the community to avoid displacement and ensure that folks can stay here, you know, and learn from this year. So hopefully that's helpful, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, Jack.
I wanted to, just if you could give a brief report on the empty 3rd Street property.
Yeah. The question was a brief report on the 3rd Street property. Tom, do you want to?
Sure. Yeah, so as of April, we're entitled for 3 units on that property. We're working closely with our design team, our engineers, and fortunately Steve Antonaros, a CLAM board member who's leading the design. And we feel like we're about ready to submit for building permits in the next few weeks, and we are considering the potential of including that as one of the other properties mentioned for direct from ranch family crisis into permanent housing. We think that'd be a great opportunity to have 3 units, and the county has loosely promised us that all of these applications that we have will go straight to the top of the pile. We'll see how that pans out, but we're super grateful for their coordination with us and having the attention that these projects deserve and meeting our timeline that is extremely ambitious.
Yes.
Over to Sarah.
I do have a question, but I wanted to say thank you to Susan Hayes and Jack Kramer and to Jared and to Tom and to Yesenia and to all the board members for your generosity and your so appreciate you all. And now I have a question, which is, what is the budget for the emergency cap unit for not
So-
only the temporary, but the permanent? And where are you seeking funds? How much funds do you have, and how much do you need for it?
12 questions.
Yeah, so Sarah, of the 3 units acquired from Jack and Susan over on 2nd Street behind the Western and Cheetahs, Sarah is one of the residents of the existing unit there, and the other 2 are vacant, one for Martinelli, one for Seashore. And her question was about the budget for the interim housing and the permanent housing at the 6th and B CAFLOC project. So for interim housing, we're estimating about $5.5 million across the acquisition of the land, the on-site infrastructure improvements, and the acquisition of the tiny homes that we intend to put on it. It's a rough estimate until we have our full engineering drawings set. It's going to be tough to give an exact estimate, but that's what we've put based on what we think we'll do. And as for the permanent housing, very similarly, we don't know exactly what we're going to do yet. We don't know the size of the structures and what type they'll be. So we can give an estimate, but it won't be particularly accurate until we have designed engineered drawings. So the septic system, ballparking about $250,000. The tanks alone are $50,000, and if we want to have traffic rated tanks that we could put under the parking, that'd be about $150,000 plus all the labor to install those.
So that's why our hope is to have that investment carry through to the permanent housing.
Yeah.
That's why, it's $250,000, right? Like we really want to try to not have to do that investment twice, and that's the effort of trying to carry that through to serve, some future form of permanent housing. Cassandra?
Yeah, I just want to tag on to the cost question, because one of the reasons that the foundations and their donors have actually been able and willing to put in money is how cost effectively these projects are coming out. So I know there's some builders here of affordable housing. We estimate it's 1 to 1.2 million a unit of affordable housing in the Bay Area. So if you build like Oak Hill coming in, or one of these big multifamily things, you want to house 100 families, you got over $100 million. These projects are all coming in at around $500,000 a unit, sometimes a little less, for both interim and permanent, through the generosity of the community, through the creativity of doing preservation and rehab where possible. And so even though these sound like really big numbers, you guys are doing it about half the cost that is happening in the rest of the county. And that's a really important part, and it's part of the way to get the chance to actually rent to people who really can only pay in that $1,000 to $1,600 range. It's really essential. But so I just want to add that perspective, because I think the numbers can sound big, but comparatively, they're less.
Yeah, and so we're looking at older properties that need some serious love, and that's why we're asking our professionals to do what they can as far as pricing goes. I'm more than happy to give the sob story about why they need to reduce their prices, and that's why we do the volunteer days, to bring in crews to help finish off the properties, paint them, clean them, do the landscaping. So we're trying to use the dollars that have been given to us as effectively as possible. So it's an incredibly ambitious goal, raising the money we need, but we've already begun with some extremely generous donors, thanks to our community partners who recognize the problem and are stepping up.
If I can just add one other, so I'd mentioned that we're not losing sight of Coast Guard, that we're focusing on displaced families. And then Tom, do you want to just share, the other key piece for us is stewardship, that we're stewarding the properties that we do have, and that we're being responsive to our residents and their needs. I just want to share some of the big kind of wins on stewardship that, yeah.
So CLAM has a long history of responsible stewardship of its properties, thanks to the people that have come before us. They've been smart enough to set aside quite a bit of money to maintain these properties and provide not only affordable housing, but high quality affordable housing. So what we've been doing lately, with the help of one of CLAM's board members, we've been assessing the condition of every property, going through an in-depth analysis of what are the items that need to be repaired now, what do we project we'll need to repair in 5 years and 10 years, and do we have the money set aside to do that? So we're not going to blow all of our money on this interim housing project. Those are separate accounts with money set aside to steward those properties in the future. And we also have some energy efficiency upgrades going on. Our tenants down in Stinson, we have an 8-unit apartment building there. They've all had new doors, new windows, new electrical service, new hot water heaters. They're getting a solar system in the next couple of months. For all of the CLAM properties, we just wrapped up a pretty major grant application for each property to receive solar and battery backup. It's part of PG&E and the state working together to do what they are calling the Residential Solar and Storage Equity Program. It's designed to provide solar systems to those that wouldn't otherwise be able to afford it. So we just submitted those this month. We're hoping to hear back in the next month or two on whether or not we've been given those awards.
And a lot of that energy work is thanks to Marin Community Foundation's Climate Catalyst grant. And also, I just want to give a shout out again to Sarah Hobson and Cassandra Benjamin from West Marin Fund and MCF respectively, because the only way as a small nonprofit we've been able to keep up with this is from operating support from both of their organizations. We've been able to hire additional staff, hire contractors who are specialists in real estate development that alleviate Tom's bandwidth. So that's how we're able to meet the moment, is because of partnership and support. So thanks again to you both. I think, can we give them a round of applause?
The community's money we have the privilege of sharing out. So just to be clear, it's really a thanks, especially for West Marin Fund and the many donors to West Marin.
Yes.
Well put. And keep the questions coming. Please.
I have three. The first one is, will there be the creation of a tiny home village housing authority or tenant association? Number two, will a prospective tenant have to be legally bound to stay for a certain period of time? And number three, will a tiny home resident have to pay any sort of rent?
Mm-hmm. Do you want to take are any of those resonating with you? I mean,
Yeah,
so
I'll
that
take
the first one. Okay.
Might have to remind us of the other two, but for the residents that, so will there be a sort of tiny house village association? And CLAM's rentals are managed by CLAM. We do resident gatherings. We intend to do surveys on resident satisfaction, but ultimately the units will be managed by CLAM. We're under the direction of the CLAM board.
And then let's see, the second question, remind me?
Will
Rents. So there will be rents, because they will be CLAM properties with CLAM lease agreements for the residents. And so the rents will be between $1,000 to $1,600 approximately. So once the, we have nearly 30 properties under management currently at CLAM. So once these properties begin operation, we're basically doing resident and tenant services. They're paying rent for the properties just like everybody else. They're signing a lease agreement. So that's the basic process. Is that helpful?
So that would be for the Martinelli and Seashore residents. There will be a lease agreement and they will be paying rent.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Not only at 6th and B, but across all the properties. So 2nd Street, there's a associated rent with each of those units for Martinelli Seashore families, be it interim or permanent housing. It's under CLAM's. The plan is for it to be under CLAM's operation and supervision. So even in this partnership with the county here at 6th and B, CLAM, it would be the leaseholder and operator of the interim housing, and we would be stewarding it the same that we do all of our other properties. Yeah, great questions. Yeah, Susan.
CLAM may be addressing this more than I'm informed, but structurally this county has really preferred the single family home, so you got a 3-2. Well, as this county ages, not just in West Marin, but in the county as a whole, what are the possibilities of finding more housing available in what exists? I look around the community and I see a single person living in a 3-bedroom home, which is, there is a stock of housing here that is already available. How can CLAM and the county facilitate a better use of the housing that we already have?
Yes, that's a great question. It's so many aging seniors, and you see a lot of single residents in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath household,
and can I add that they can no longer afford to be in it and frequently sell because they can't, it's beyond their capability to care for and maintain.
Exactly. It's again, she was saying it's a challenge to maintain and afford those homes as a single individual on a fixed income. So I'd like to talk about a couple of CLAM programs. So one was the Real Community Rentals program, where CLAM would partner with an architect and community members, go into a home and assess what can we do here to make 2 units out of this one house. And that does 2 things. It provides income for the senior and it provides another unit. And this was a program funded by Marin County. They would pay for CLAM staff time and that of the architects and engineers to design those house splits to be able to do that. And we'd also, I say we, but this was before my time at CLAM. CLAM looked at the potential of adding ADUs on the property and what that would take. And we're working together with West Marin Housing Collaborative to reinvigorate that program. It will be called Community Rentals. It'll be about going around and working with community members to create additional units. The other program I want to talk about is CLAM's Age in Place program. That is, we have one pilot with Bobby Loeb up on the Mesa. She had multiple major 6-figure repairs that she needed to do to her property, and she had tenants that she wanted to keep at the rate that they were paying, but she was cash strapped. So she entered into an agreement for a retained life estate with CLAM to come in, purchase the property in advance, make those repairs that were needed for her property, retain her tenants, and it was a big win all around. She's in the New York Times, quoted as saying, it's a win-win-win. For her, she gets to stay in her property. For her residents, they get to stay there, continue to pay the rents that they're paying. And for CLAM, it will ultimately be 3 units in the future. Susan.
I'm just going to say that regarding ODJDs, I did it before Real Community Rentals was invented, and I highly recommend it. And it's also another way to have people on your property who can help you.
Thanks, Susan. Susan's saying she did it before Real Community Rentals, and of course she did. She's a CLAM founder and longtime community contributor. So thank you, Susan.
Other questions? We've gone past event time, but that doesn't need to stop us, folks. You're still here. If you have questions, I might take a break and have a donut in a second, but no rush. More questions, please.
Folks can come up to individually as well,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I think that seems like, I'm good with the awkward silence as a former college professor, but I think we're going to call it. And thanks, everyone. Please hang out, have some coffee, have some donuts. Most importantly, thank you for supporting affordable housing in West Marin. We're seeing you.